Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you another video. Alright, so I figured I'd bump my gums on the Lakers since I'm finally on track. I was a little lost trying to find my way back from where I was at over there in Laurel Canyon, but I'm where I need to be. So yeah, Lakers, good job. Up 2-0 in the series. I was just listening to a podcast from the Rockets side of things. I tend to like to listen to the ops. I don't know why I'm like this. I'm weird like this. After a win, I like hearing the ops cry and wail and hear what they are looking to do, hear what they would want to see. I just like listening to the pain of our enemies. I don't know why. I'm weird like that. So I was listening to mostly Rockets podcasts for basketball content today. Not necessarily our Laker people, for which I will get to, obviously. I want to definitely check out what's going on our side and how happy we are. But more so, I want to hear the urgency and the talking points on the Rockets side. Essentially, what I gather from Rockets Twitter, or Rockets YouTube rather, is obvious unhappiness with many facets of what's going on with their team. But I think there's more so surprise with how poorly they're playing. And look, I'm actually kind of surprised with how poor they're playing as well. But I was the guy that went on record telling you guys if I had one team that I wanted to play that was in the playoffs in the Western Conference, it'd be the Rockets. Under our circumstances, we're down our men. Yeah, that's the team. I'd rather see them in Phoenix. I'd rather see them in Portland. I'd rather see them than even the Clippers, who are not even in this thing, or the Golden State Warriors, for that matter, and Steph Curry. I would rather play the Rockets. For one, they don't have a point guard. For two, their spacing's not that great. For three, they're missing Fred VanVleet. And for four, Kevin Durant doesn't scare me anymore. He just don't. He just don't, man. I believe Kevin Durant is still a piece that, if placed in the right spot, could win a lot. I really believe that. If he's a piece at this point that I actually think fits very well with us, because he's a hyper-efficient scorer who you don't want to facilitate, but if he had multiple facilitators around him, the spacing would be phenomenal. You could put him on our team right now, and I think we would be fantastic. I still don't think we'd beat OKC, because OKC is that souped up. But I'm telling you, like, he would fit right in with what we're doing, and we could go real deep in the playoffs with him. And if avoiding OKC, I think we're going to win the championship with him. Now, obviously, that's low-hanging fruit, because most people look at KD as a superstar, and it's like, yo, you're souping up your team. But the reality is he's aging so much at this point. And he's been exposed as a guy who can't lead his team to a championship anymore so consistently to now I don't see him like that. I see him as a third option to this situation. Like, literally, it's going to be Luka, Bron, or Austin. KD falls in line in that trio. And we would see who has the hot hand, and that would be kind of how that goes. I don't see KD as a leading guy. He's the last... No, that's not true. I was going to say something that's not actually true. What I was going to say, he's the last guy I want in a circumstance like the Rockets, where he's going to be constantly double-teamed, and, you know, the rest of his team has no spacing. That's just not true. I don't actually feel that way. But I don't think that's great for him. I don't think that's a great circumstance for him. I think he is a fantastic shooter, fantastic go-to scorer, still, so long as the stuff around him holds up their end of the damn bargain. You know what I mean? Like, literally. I feel the same way about LeBron James. Fantastic basketball piece. If the stuff around him is doing what it's supposed to be doing, we can win. It's not too many players in this league, especially aging guys, that I expect can hold their own when spacing is a problem, when they don't have facilitators around them. I don't think there's too many superstars, even guys in their prime, but especially aging guys, that I expect to be able to handle that very well. And so when you're talking about LeBron James, at least he has Luke Kennard, Luke Kennard, Rui Hachimura is what I was trying to say. Aiden in the paint. Serviceable guys that, by way of what it is they can do independent of him, with his playmaking ability, with his driving to the rim, with his overall, fast break ability and just athleticism to himself, he comes together to make it all make sense. Kevin Durant needs a facilitator. He needs rim protection. He needs nice defensive wings around him. Maybe a bruising rebounder somewhere. Shooters, a bunch of shooters. Everybody who can shoot relatively fair enough to create spacing. And then from there, if they do their job, you can be a part of a winner. It's a lot of talk about Ime Udoka and how he has failed to scheme a way out of what it is he's running into. Kevin Durant, I think, is taking a lot of maybe a little unfair punishment, criticism rather, because he is fresh off the knee. This is his first game back, and he ran into a defense where he was having trouble with the double teams a few weeks ago when we went to the Rockets for 2 straight games. He wasn't doing well with that when his knee was fine. Now you expect for him to miss a week or so, come back into playoff intensity defense that was working against him, and ultimately just be able to pick it apart. I think that's a little unfair, especially when you could crowd him out because everybody else ain't really capable of shooting. Then when you couple that, not only do they have a spacing issue, but they also have a continuity issue because their best passer on the floor is also the best scorer in KD. They need him to start plays and finish plays. So what do I need the rest of these guys for in the offense? If the best option to pass to is me, then the best person doing any passing is me. Now, what I would say is, this is what I would do. And I don't want to help the Rockets. But Alperen Sengun has been a very capable passer in his career. It's gotten lost in all of the issues that he's had with chippies not being made. He's been extremely inefficient. We pointed that out going into the series. And if I'm not mistaken, there were some inefficiency issues leading up to the games that we had about a month ago in Houston, or whatever it was, 3 weeks ago. He's been on a bad stretch where he's been missing a lot of close shots. But what he also is, which has gotten lost in all of these conversations about him, what makes him a star is his ability to facilitate as well. And Ime Udoka, in all the different things that Ime is thinking about, has apparently not found a way to make him the hub of the facilitation around the offense. I would have already thought of that. But I think Ime Udoka is not. He still wants Alpi to finish in the paint. And, it's all about Alpi getting, post positioning and then shooting hook shots he's not making. That's not how you get Alpi going right now. You forget about the scoring to a certain degree, and you start focusing on his ability to make rhythm passes in the offense and have stuff rotating around him. None of that is what I'm seeing down there. And so, and they have an issue with their roster, man. The players that they have that's supposed to be able to give them some relief, they can't trust, man. They can't trust most of the players that they have on their team. Outside of the guys that they're using, which provide them very little spacing, comes a bunch of guys that if you put them on the floor, we're going to cook them people. So it becomes a situation where they have a talent issue, they have a spacing issue, they have a facilitation issue, they have a health issue. And that's a lot to ask of Ime Udoka. I don't think Ime Udoka has a team full of guys that actually like one another as well. So that makes it hard to wake up and want to fight for one another and play with one another and help one another and want to see one another succeed. I don't think the Rockets team really likes one another very much. They have some chemistry issues that might have fractured things, and that fracturing may have thrown off some of the focus that would otherwise allow for them to look like a more cohesive problem-solving unit. It's hard to solve problems when you don't appreciate the people you're working with, when you don't necessarily communicate because of it. And I think that's half the battle right there, is them people don't really like one another. So when it's time to figure out how to find solutions, they're probably not having very constructive conversations. That's what I gather. So Ime Udoka is taking a lot of the brunt of what is wrong there. And he may very well not be finding solutions. He may very well be ready to provide solutions, and it may not necessarily be an environment for which is ready to receive those solutions. I think that's kind of the problem too. You're really looking at a Rockets team with multiple problems. How they were able to win as many games as they did is actually a mystery to me. And I think if the season started today, they'd look more like Golden State Warriors that we've seen all season than the team that they ultimately came out to be. I don't know how they won as many as they did. But I can tell you, they need Reed Shepherd to be better. They need Alpi Sengun to start hitting his chippies. Those two things would help a lot. I don't believe the Rockets are as bad of a three-point shooting team as we've seen them in these first two games. Under 30%. I don't expect for them to shoot that poorly at home. And if they do, we're going to knock them off. They can't keep shooting this poorly. So if the threes start to fall, suddenly this is a different series. Because it ain't like the Lakers are blowing the house down with all these points we scoring. We really not. We are still a hobbled, wounded team that is lacking some serious talent. And we saw that yesterday in the third quarter, or was it second quarter, when we had them 4 straight turnovers. Some of our role players are looking a little iffy, and I pointed that out. I'm not saying we're out of the woods. We're not. We're fairly weak, to be honest with you. I don't think we've been dominating the Rockets at all with all the struggles that they've been having. They still have been within striking distance of both of those basketball games, shooting as poorly as they have, spacing as poor as it is. And we shot especially well. So if some of that stuff regresses to the means, we're looking at a 2-2 series in no time. And so I'm not overly confident, like a lot of people, that this series is over. I think the Rockets' issues are real. But I think the Lakers need to continue playing the way they've been playing. And we need these role players to play well on the road. And I'm not certain they're going to. I hope they do. But I'm not certain they're going to. But all of that, I also wanted to say something else about Ime Udoka. I'm not really sure where his head is at. I'm just going to be honest with y'all. I'm not really sure Ime Udoka is 100% where he needs to be to lead a basketball team right now. And some of the stuff that I've seen come out of his mouth when he's unhappy on that sideline, is he all right? Like, I'm seriously. And you just look at the whole situation that happened when he was dealing with what he was dealing with off the court. And some of the things that were said that were to have occurred on his end. Like, is this dude okay? Is he all there? I'm just being honest. He seemed like he's a little off. He really does seem like he's off to me, man. I guess like he's a very unhappy person, just in general. And that kind of trickles into some of the energy that he puts out just in general as well. And when you couple that with KD and his mercurial kind of ways, negatives, kind of I don't care about what you think, I'm going to say what I want to say in my burner account ways, I just wonder if the chemistry was not domed from the start when you got those two people as two of the most important people on your roster. So, especially under these circumstances where there's trouble in the waters with the construction of the roster and the GM and them are not bringing you what you need, those are not two people that I want to be my most important people under these circumstances. I don't think those minds handle these situations as well as they need to. That's just, from afar, I just look at Ime and say, all right, dog. I don't want to speak more than I should because I'm just looking from afar. I don't follow him very much. But he always, every time they pan over to him using, they pay attention to what he's saying. I look at him, he's saying something wild, crazy cuss words, just like some negative stuff coming out of his mouth. Always saying something that just looked like, dog, I don't know. It's just a vibe that I get from him that reminds me of an unhappy young person. Not necessarily somebody who's in his 40s, but maybe like somebody who's in their 20s. And so if he got that type of personality, that type of spirit, I don't think he's the guy you want running things when things are out of whack around him. And I just don't think so. Now, when he had the Boston situation, when everything was stable before things went bad, he was an awesome coach. His rookie season, they were a great team. Everything looked great. He was praised as one of the best coaches. And I think under those circumstances, Ime's already proven himself. But under these, nah, I'm not seeing solutions found for the problems. I'm not seeing a unit that's running through a wall for him or for one another. I'm not seeing patchwork jobs for problems that are very glaring, that could have some solutions that haven't been displayed as of yet. Like I said, Alpi Sengun is a guy that I believe can get a triple-double. Why? Because he has excellent floor vision. He can rebound the ball in his sleep, and he has excellent floor vision. So if he's missing his chippies, half of the offense should be him trying to find Kevin Durant, him trying to find other people that can hit a damn jump shot. Tari Eason needs to be utilized more. He shot perfect from the floor in that first game against the Lakers. I would imagine if you're going to find any spacing, you need to utilize him more. Amen Thompson is a fantastic defensive player, but I heard somebody say that he reminds them of Ben Simmons in the sense that he ain't shooting. Nobody trusts him to shoot. He's not attempting any three-point shots. In modern NBA terms, that is unacceptable. He has to not only be willing to take three-point shots if he's going to be this important of a player in a circumstance like this, but he also has to be able to hit them and prove that the spacing is valid. Otherwise, we're just going to crowd out the players around him and just leave him open. And so when you got that going on with him, I'll be the same thing. That's too much non-spacers of the floor. And then there, again, nobody looking for anybody at all. So it's bad. It's really bad. I am surprised to see it look as bad as it is, but the problems that they have are kind of what you see on paper before the games are even played. And, you know, I just think that when you look at this Laker team, we have a different spirit about us. We're definitely focused. We're definitely communicating. You know, we got guys who, the journey that the Lakers have been on this season has been one of, you know, ups and downs, but we've been locked in and together for the whole thing. Not everybody's on the same wavelength there. Some players are more decorated than others. Some guys are more, you know, higher basketball IQs than others. But one thing you can say about this unit this year is they're locked in with one another. When they lose a guy, you feel it, but it's next man up. They're communicating, they're helping one another up. They meet the urgency of the moment. They beat the teams they're supposed to beat. If you show them that you are a team they're supposed to beat, they're going to beat you. They struggled with teams they couldn't beat earlier in the season, and then proved to themselves that they could beat teams of that caliber as they continue to run the reps with one another. This has been a locked-in unit. They in tune with one another. They like playing with one another. And when it's time to find solutions for problems, they're able to figure it out together. That's what the Rockets don't have. That's what the Rockets don't have, man. And we've seen broken locker rooms with this Laker organization before. This is not one of them. This is not one of them. And so what I see when I see the Lakers go up against a lot of teams, I feel like we're the better chemistry team this season. A lot of teams. This ain't the only team I felt this way about. Some teams are more locked in than others. Don't get it twisted. But, like, I think the Lakers are probably as locked in as any team in the NBA with one another, in tune with one another, rooting for one another, enjoying playing for and with one another. And they trust their coach. They trust their leadership on their team. And that's what I think is really working in the Lakers' favor versus what is not working for the Houston Rockets. And I think if the Houston Rockets had that type of energy about themselves, they would probably be doing better right now. But it's hard to find that when there's so much wrong outside of your control, which is ultimately why I think the biggest issue they got is their general manager issue, because they had all season long to find themselves a point guard. They had all season long to address that point guard position, and it didn't require them get somebody that's going to cost a lot. They could have found a guy in the G League. They could have pulled down Chris Paul, called him over. He's just sitting at home waiting for an opportunity. They severely neglected to address a very important aspect of basketball, and that's making sure that somebody's on the floor looking for everybody else. Somebody who's on the floor who knows the importance of ball movement. And that they don't respect that tells me that whoever is in charge of putting this thing together shouldn't be in charge of putting this thing together. That's one of the most basic things that you need for a basketball floor in any era, not just the spacing era. You couldn't get away with not having a point guard back in 1975, dog. So this organization is fractured. They made some terrible decisions. I called it out before they even started making those decisions. I made several videos about 2 years ago when it was rumored that the Rockets wanted to trade away their young talent for old guys, that this was something that they were going to ultimately end up doing. And I told you so. I told you so. Tillman Fertitta, I told you, dog. If you follow anything that I ever said in the past, you know I saw all of these woes that you're going through coming. You're doing things the wrong way. You had everything everybody wanted and didn't want it. Young players in abundance, athleticism in abundance. And the only thing that was coming to mind when you had all of that was, I want to hurry up and win now. I need older people who know what they're doing to help me win now. When you're tunnel visioned with that mentality, you could take things that are so very valuable and turn them into what Tillman Fertitta turned this into. We can blame Booth to a degree, but I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in the presence of them not getting a point guard comes some rebellion from the GM to the owner. Because this is malpractice in a real form, but it's also initiated failure when you allow your team to not have a facilitator on the basketball floor, and you spend the entire season without even as much as bringing yourself a G League point guard facilitator. You didn't as much put somebody on the floor who could just do it. That tells me that you may not have necessarily wanted all of this to work out. And maybe you were unhappy because somebody didn't take your advice, and you wanted them to see that situation fail the way that it was going to fail. I think there's a world where you can speculate that type of thing and see maybe that being what's going on here. Whatever the case may be, anybody with some sense would have told the owner, Tillman Fertitta, that giving away all that young talent and bringing yourself a bunch of role guys that have been in the league for 100 years was going to leave him looking like this. Anybody with a half a brain would have told him that you ain't got no business giving away all these young players, and he had a bunch of them. For Dodo, Clint Capella, kept Green was already on the team, but like he was the only old guy there. You add him to that situation. Steven Adams, who's not really old, but is injury prone as hell, always has been. What else? And not Justin Holiday, but Aaron Holiday, nice role player. But you had stuff that could have bloomed into something special. Guys that needed to be developed, opportunities with picks, all this different stuff. Yeah, and even when you made the trade for, or rather gave Dylan Brooks all that money, I didn't agree with it, right? But you hadn't given up all of your good stuff at that point. So you went and brought yourself Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks became an important piece. Jalen Green had his issues, but he was young. He was only getting better. Yeah, you might have been tired of him. I don't blame you for that, but like, you had some young stuff. You had stuff that you could, if you wait a couple years, it could balloon into better trade pieces. If you wait a couple years, it can come together and play for your team for 6-7 years. He didn't want none of that. He thought he had enough of that in Sengun, non-shooter, Amon Thompson, non-shooter, and Tari Eason, decent shooter. I mean, that was the youth that he wanted. He didn't want to keep none of the other young guys, and as a result, he thought bringing himself Kevin Durant. Yeah, but now we bring ourselves Kevin Durant. That's the solution. And we got Fred VanVleet on an overhyped contract. That's going to be enough. And then I guess he thought Dodo was going to be some special defensive player. Even though Dodo been in the league for 100,000 years, anybody who watched Dodo last season knows that guy is aging, knows that he ain't got but 5 minutes left in the game. Clint Capella, same thing. Anybody who watched these people know they were aging, know they getting ready to be washed if they ain't washed already. And that's the thing. Talent evaluation, you know, that provides you a great deal of what it is you see here. When people poorly evaluate talent, poorly evaluate what guys are able to do, poorly evaluate what it is that will help the team win, poorly evaluate what the market's going to appreciate once you get it to your team. All these poor evaluations and neglect of so much wisdom as it pertains to what's best for this league and what's best for your team. He neglected all that for a vision that he had, and this is what you get. You get this crap. And you could say, well, Fred VanVleet went down. Yes. And you should have been able to see Fred VanVleet going down. It wasn't like that was just absolutely unforeseeable. Fred VanVleet has had injury issues. Fred VanVleet was an older guy when he was drafted, and he's been in the league for a couple years, won a championship. He's older now. He was old when he was drafted. And he was on an inflated contract that nobody should ever pay. If I'm not mistaken, the Rockets paid him that. Paid him like he's a superstar or something. It was never going to work out, man. And so, yeah, could you foresee him going down with an injury? Of course. Maybe not as bad as you thought it was, but you had to assume you were going to be without him. Where's your backup point guard? No. Kevin Durant then had an Achilles injury. He's making up another good portion of your cap. Fred VanVleet and Kevin Durant. They even played in this league. Both of them won championships. A lot of mileage on their legs. Contracts representing what they've done, not what they're about to do. You know, you slapped them two contracts together. You also got to pay Sengun. You also got to pay Amon at some point. You also got to pay Tari at some point. And fill out the rest of your roster. So, of course, there's going to be some shallow issues with the rest of your bench because that eats up a good majority of your cap. You can't get quality players in theory because you don't have your picks anymore. You gave them away. So you're relying upon these old, overpaid guys who are, by way of their presence together, crushing the rest of your possibility of building a good bench. And then you're surprised when these guys are not available to you, or you're surprised when it's only a few of them around. I mean, it's like, yo, this stuff was foreseeable. I told them this was going to happen. I basically made several videos illustrating all of this before they pulled the trigger on that. When it was rumored they wanted to do this, I told them how bad of a decision this would be. I told them they weren't going to win nothing doing it. You got to look at the teams who are actually winning. Look at the teams that are at the top of the Western Conference. They're full of young players. They may have a few vets, but those vets aren't washed. Oldest guy on OKC? Alex Caruso. You know, San Antonio, the oldest guy over there? Scotty Barnes. Harrison Barnes, excuse me. Unc. They're not old. So why in your mind did you think you needed to get old in order to effectively win in this era? It's just like, just people having ideas in their mind without actually really knowing what the hell they're talking about. Having some vision in their head that comes from a dream that they had or something. They don't actually have anything to do with studying the field and actually understanding what environment they're in when they make certain decisions. And that's really what it is, man. I think if they really want to fix the Rockets situation, you make sure that ownership is not in the way of the next vision. You make sure that ownership is not making the call for the next wave of what the Rockets should look like. You pay the bills, dog. Nothing else. You hire people who know what they're doing, and you leave them to do the job. Owners that don't do that tend to be the reason their teams are trash. It is consistent. Every once in a while, you find an owner that's awesome, who can get involved a little bit, or a lot even, and have success. And in those situations, they usually have people around them that they listen to, that they trust, that know what they're doing, who are savants at what they do. And together they make decisions that are great based on the information that is available to them about not only what it is that worked in the past and what's working right now, but potentially what could be down the pipeline. And with all of that information and all that understanding, they're able to make educated decisions about how they should dream up the future of their franchise. And so that's really what it is. If you want to know what's wrong with the Rockets, it's Tillman Fertitta, man. That's what's wrong with the Rockets. The owner had all these young players and all this different stuff that was highly valuable, and he decided he didn't want any of that. He wanted to get old because in his mind that meant that his team was going to be good, and everything that came after that is basically what you see here. All the different problems that they have, micro problems, macro problems, all of that comes from that single idea. I don't want all this young stuff. I believe getting older means I'm going to win, and I'm going to do that. And that's really what it was. After that, everything went wrong with him and that team, and this is what you're seeing. This is his dream. This is what actually came of that vision he had 2 years ago when he had all these young players and decided he wanted to get older. This is what comes of it. He had his idea of what it looks like, and then there was the reality of what comes of it. This was actually the reality. This is what ends up happening. And look, that team, the problem that they're now going to run into, just like a lot of teams, is after you do all this stupid stuff that doesn't work, now you're left with the trash, and you have to try to turn that trash into something respectable. Whether it be retooling the team to fit a now timeline, or rebuilding the team and resetting the team's timeline. And you really need a lot in order to give yourself enough. You got to be able to trade stuff for picks. You got to be able to trade stuff for young players. And that is very hard when you bring yourself a bunch of stuff that ain't no damn good in the market. You ain't getting nothing for Aaron Holiday. You ain't getting nothing for Steven Adams. You ain't getting nothing for Clint Capella. You ain't getting nothing for Jeff Green. You're getting nothing for most of this trash. And the reality is, now guys like Alfred Sengun are losing value. Amen Thompson's losing value. Tari Eason's losing value. So what you thought you would have got for them, you ain't getting for them now, because you let them sit in this horrible vision that you had that ultimately made them look exposed, made them look worse, made what it is that they do wrong be what's on the forefront of what everybody see, and nobody want to pay for that stuff no more. It's bad. It's so bad, and it only gets worse from here unless they find a way to turn what they have into something twice as more valuable. However that looks, that's what needs to happen. You got to win a bunch of little micro trades. You got to win a bunch of little micro trades because you don't have the picks. Or you got to mortgage more of your picks in the future to try to bring yourself some stuff that can hopefully be more valuable in the mid-future, that can be re-traded for more than what you're giving up. And hope that works out for you. We've seen that work out here and there at times. But it's gonna be you ultimately risking making this significantly worse, hoping that somehow you can make it better by doing so. It gets worse, Rockets fan, period. It gets worse. Bottom line, you can try trading Kevin Durant. He ain't worth as much as you need him to be anymore. He's not. He's not worth what you paid for, in my opinion. And you got to convince yourself that moving on from him is the move. And that's hard because he fits in a lot of situations. Unfortunately, though, he don't fit in yours. So guess what? Kevin Durant could be on the move again. He could be on the move again. Because that, whatever it is that the Houston Rockets have to do to fix this problem, is not going to make the timeline make sense for Kevin Durant anymore. That's the reality of it. That is not going to make any sense for him anymore. If they trade Alfred Sengun, if they trade Tari Eason, and they trade Amen Thompson, now what is Kevin Durant? What are you playing with now? When you bring back those guys for half the price, or you bring those guys back for first round picks or whatever, what are you playing with now? You got to move Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, in my opinion, is about to reach a space in his career where he is going to be remembered as a journeyman. He really is going to be remembered as a journeyman. A guy who couldn't stay in one spot for too long. He left Golden State looking for greener pastures in Brooklyn. That was a bad decision. He left Brooklyn looking for greener pastures in Phoenix. Also, bad decision. He left Phoenix looking for greener pastures in Houston. It ain't working out. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think he should have ever left Golden State. Now, leaving the Thunder, he ended up playing with the Golden State Warriors. It was excellent. They won championships. A lot of people think that was a mistake. That was a blemish on his career. But at the end of the day, that was where he won his championships. Because the spacing was good. The defense was good. The timeline made sense. He fit like a glove, and that was one of the greatest teams ever assembled. Top 3 basketball team in the history of the sport. His Golden State Warriors. He left that team. And just had bad visions for his own situation, for his own future. If I'm being completely honest with you, he never chose places that were any good for him ever again. That's the God's honest truth. Brooklyn was terrible. That was fool's gold. They didn't have the brain trust in place to put the right stuff around those guys, and that didn't fit at all. That situation didn't fit at all. Kyrie Irving and James Harden and himself, that didn't fit. They were winning games in the regular season, but they didn't have enough of defensive stuff around them, and the brain trust wasn't smart enough. With all due respect, they weren't smart enough to put the right stuff around them. They didn't show the capability of being able to put the right stuff around them. Phoenix, you could tell that was going to go bad when it first happened because they had to mortgage their entire future in order to get him. So he knew he was coming to a situation that wasn't no good. That was bad from the jump. And so it's just like, man, I look at Kevin Durant and say, you fit wonderfully in a lot of situations, but you got to pick the right place again. You did great when you picked Golden State. But it's like you listen to so many people get on your case about that, so you started making things harder for yourself. And that's not harmless, man. That's not harmless. Because when those situations go bad, as we clearly see, they don't last very long. You got to move on. So, like I said, I think Kevin Durant will fit in a lot of situations. He fit great on Denver right now. He fit good on this Laker team right now. There's a lot of situations I think he would fit fantastic. Detroit, I think, would be pretty interesting. Boston, always interesting, even though, that probably wouldn't work out. But, there's not too many places that Kevin Durant don't fit. You just have to have a stable front office. San Antonio would have been wonderful. People were telling him San Antonio. He didn't put San Antonio on his list. I guess he didn't see the vision. I don't know, man. I don't know. But, hell, Portland, honestly, if I'm being honest with you guys, Portland didn't look all that bad to me for Kevin Durant. We talked about that. They had a lot of stuff that would have made sense for him. Rim protection, defensive guards, facilitators, spacers. They had everything. Whatever, man. At this point, like I said, I haven't feared Kevin Durant since Brooklyn, man. I haven't feared him since Brooklyn. As soon as he got to that Brooklyn team and it showed that it wasn't like that, even though everybody was hyping him up, I understood that Kevin Durant is a fantastic piece, but he ain't going to be able to lead nobody to a championship no more. Not like that. He's going to need to be in a situation where other people are doing their job at a very high level, and he can complement that. He's going to win a lot of championships that way, just like he did with Steph Curry and Golden State. But otherwise, this is what you get. This is exactly that. There's no mystique there. It's just not. And so that's really what I got to say about that, man. The Houston situation is rotten. I don't see an easy solution. They look closer to Milwaukee than they do to San Antonio or OKC or something like that. They look like they headed down the Milwaukee path. You know what I'm saying? Where, yeah, they may have their stuff that, like Giannis, but they ain't got nothing else. Everything else is around them is bad. Coaching situation is rotten. So yeah, I think the Rockets need to just clean the front office. Clean the front office. That's what I think. Get rid of the GM. You know, honestly, get rid of GM. If you want to get rid of Ime, I think that Ime's a really good coach, so he's probably gonna find his way elsewhere and probably do better elsewhere. But I don't see too much of a problem with getting rid of Ime. But you know, a lot can change between now and the next week or two. If the Lakers drop the next 2 games, suddenly we're talking about how Houston's back. You know what I mean? It's a lot of things that can happen. But I think the bigger picture, no matter what happens with this series, the fact that you lost the first 2 games to a Luka Austin-less Laker team, when you were favored in both of those games, and you couldn't score over 100 points in game 2, that should tell you that you were nowhere near ready to compete with OKC, nowhere near ready to compete with Boston and Detroit and San Antonio. You're nowhere near ready to compete with those teams. And you just got to be honest about that, regardless of what happens with this Lakers series. And if for some reason the Lakers do lose the series, and you go on to see OKC will bring you home. They will let you understand. They will remind you how far away from that type of thing you actually are. Is if you didn't get it with the Lakers here, OKC will definitely take care of that for you. So that's really what I got to say, man. Houston is in a rut. It's going to get bad. It's going to get bad in the short term, in my opinion, especially if they don't get rid of certain people. I don't expect that the people in place right now are going to find any solutions. I don't think they should be dreaming up what happens next. I don't think they can find trades that make anything make sense at all. I just think they got to I don't know. I honestly don't know. This is a situation where I think it might make sense to try to trade Tari Eason for a high lottery pick if you can. If anything like that is possible, maybe even Amen Thompson for a high lottery pick. And with that lottery pick, try to get yourself somebody that can come in and be ready to rock. Absolutely ready to rock. You know what I mean? I don't know if that might be your best patchwork solution, to be honest with you. I don't necessarily love the idea of moving Amen Thompson, but if I can turn Amen Thompson to a top 3 pick, that would be awesome. I don't think anybody should be doing that for you. But like, that's the type of thing you got to be dreaming about if you don't want to tear it down. I don't think Tari Eason gonna get it done necessarily. Amen may. Alpi, with how bad he's playing, I would have said at the beginning of the season that wouldn't be a problem. At this point, I think it could potentially be one, and you don't want to trade him at this value. I don't think you want to trade Alpi at this value at all. So I'm glad I'm glad I'm not responsible for this Houston Rockets situation, because I don't think these pieces necessarily fit. Trading Kevin Durant, I don't think is going to get you a whole lot right now, not in comparison to what you need. You probably do better keeping him if you're going to go forward. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare, man. But I told him it was going to be. It's not like I didn't see that coming. Video 44. Thank you all for watching.